My name is Loren Petersen. I retired from Northwest Airlines, 40 years seniority. My manager's name was Joe May, and he was very active in what went on. I was a mechanic, but every time there was a cutback or layoff, I would go back into air freight. And that's what I was doing in air freight that night. The way I remember things happening was the FBI showed up. First one that showed up, you had to say he was right out of a comic strip. Slick black hair, combed straight back, smoking a cigarette in a holder, pointing straight up, like a little pencil mustache. And, like I say, a cartoon character. Slippery black slacks, wingtip shoes, white and black. Anyway, that was the first FBI that showed up. Then the second one was a big black man wearing an Ike jacket and very scowling. And he had his back to me most of the time. And he kept looking at his gun in his pocket. And his hand was so big it dwarfed the gun. And then I realized it was a .357 Magnum. So then the third FBI guy shows up, a little black guy, wearing a beret, and he goes dancing around the room. Doody-doo, doody-doo, doody-doo. And he comes up to the big black guy and pokes him in the side, and he says, FBI, peace and war. His exact words were, are we fucked up tonight? Doody-doo, doody-doo, dancing back around the room. That was the FBI. Now, at this time, Joe May, the manager, stuck his head out the door and told one of the agents, Bert Dupre, who just died this last month. Anyway, he told him, Bert, get me a couple parachutes. Bert called the Sky Jump Park out there at Issaquah, called him, and only one on duty was the janitor, and he grabbed one off the shelf. Then the State Patrol picked that up and brought it down to us, and I greeted him outside and took the chute from him. The next chute came from McCord Air Force Base, and it was a standard issue military type chute. Then, so we had those, and about then the guys that were fueling the airplane, the truck kept breaking down. Cooper figured we were messing with him. So anyway, after the third truck broke, Charlie Wilson, who was fueling at the time, he said, I've had it. He didn't want to go back up. So Joe May, the manager, went over to plant maintenance and asked Kenny Wilson, have you got a truck here that'll work? Yeah. He says, I got one. Well, take it up and finish fueling, will you? He said, okay. And all the time the guys were fueling, they could hear everything that was going on in the airplane because the pilot left the mic open, and then our guys had a walkie-talkies that they could, so we knew everything that Cooper was saying inside. And then Then Cooper ordered 6-box lunches. I don't know what was in them, but FBI looked at each box. And I went over to the kitchen and says, I need 6 lunches. So I brought those back. And then the FBI went through those. And then the crew called and said they wanted another jug of coffee. So I had to go back over and get that. A 2.5-gallon jug of coffee. Then about that time, the FBI guy with the money shows up. Nice, clean-cut young fella, wearing a tan trench coat. He looked like FBI. And he came in with the sack, and he says, I ran up the steps of the Federal Reserve Bank, and I didn't even get in. The door opened, and they handed me this. And he says, I never did even sign for it. I took it from him. I said, by the way, I didn't sign for it either. He says, oops. So, anyway, I sliced it open and put it in a flight bag, a crew flight bag. It's a black bag. And I put in $250,000. Everybody talks about $200,000. I put $250,000 in the bag, and the money laid crossways. They were in bundles of used $20 bills. I put that in, put the bag in there too, on top that I had slid open. I put it in there, and then tied a 1/2-inch hemp rope onto the handle of the bag with bowline knots. And anyway, that's the way it went. And then Joe May took everything up there and put it on the steps of the 727. That's all I can think of. Oh, then we went over to the, those of us that were still there, we went over to the hangar, and there was an airplane in there, and we a bunch of the mechanics and myself went over there and dialed the radio to the airplane's, the 727's frequency, and we listened to it when it took off and as it went down. And in that time, oh, I left out one thing. Cooper went in the toilet. For 45 minutes he was in there. And that was strange. The FBI wanted to go up and blow a hole right through the bottom of the airplane. Oh, about that time, the president of the Northwest called, and he's screaming on the phone, "Don't shoot any holes in my airplane." And I said, "Mr. Nyrup, I better give you my boss." And Nyrup says, "Oh, you recognize my voice?" I says, "Yes, I do, sir. We've met before." And so then I said, "Joe, line 3. So that's the way that part went. But then, like I said, back when we all went in the airplane to listen, as the airplane took off, he, even when it's dark, you can see when the Columbia River comes up. And when they saw the river, the captain says the light came on, and it showed that the rear door that goes out to the steps started flickering. That's when Cooper went out the door.
Do you recall what time that was, Mr. Petersen?
No, I don't know the exact time. No, I don't.
Okay.
That's about all I can think of right now.
Okay, thank you. If you don't mind, we'd like to just follow up with a couple of questions.
Sure.
Do you recall any of the demands that Cooper made specifically, more things that you might have heard over the radio, things that you thought were unusual at the time?
Yeah, there was, originally he wanted a duffel bag. And we said, we haven't got a duffel bag, but will this do? And mentioned the bag, and he agreed to it. Another thing, when the mechanic to do the pre-flight on the airplane was walking up, Cooper says, "Get him away from there." And he said, the pilot says, "Well, he's just going to do a walk around, the pre-flight check." Cooper said, "Get him away, because the airplane was good when it flew in, so it's good enough to fly out." Oh, and when they were fueling, Cooper said he knew how much fuel he wanted in what tanks. That was rather strange.
Can you recall, what he specifically asked for?
What he asked for?
Mm-hmm.
He asked for the money, and then the box lunches, and that was about it. And then you showed that what cigarettes he was smoking there. That was right, except for they had. I was told they had 2 cigarette butts that the FBI had taken, but those are lost, from what I've been told.
Yeah, that's our understanding as well, is that they lost those cigarette butts. About the fuel, however, and the tanks that he asked to have those put in, do you recall any specifics on that? He asked, he had a lot of information about the fuel in the tanks.
Yeah, well, he knew how much fuel he wanted in what tank. That was somebody that knew something about it.
Did he ask to only have one tank filled, or did he ask to have the entire aircraft filled?
No, it was a balance of the fuel tanks.
I see. Okay.
And the guys that were fueling, that amazed them, that he would know that. Oh, originally he wanted to sit on the steps when the airplane took off. All the mechanics were going, "Yeah, go ahead." Drive you right up through the tail,
So he had wanted the aircraft rear steps down at takeoff.
Yeah,
Is
down,
that right? Okay.
not all the way, but down enough so he could run right out.
Okay.
And I think he ran out. It's my opinion again. I think he ran out when the door light started flashing. He ran out and pulled the chute too soon and was rolled up and went down like a rock. The one chute, we thought he was going to take the stewardess with him, but that parachute turned out to be nothing but rags.
Just to clarify, at any point did you see Cooper?
No, I never did. I never saw him. I was just going by the things I heard.
Okay.
I think Joe May saw just a bit of him. And of course, he sat back there on the right-hand side before he went out the door. He sat there with the stewardess and talked for a while. Oh, and then some reports say he had on high-top shoes. I was told all he had on was loafers. And the raincoat the coat he was wearing was a coat like the Air Force officers wear. It's a blue long raincoat, and our agents wear that coat too, and the flight crew do. They have.
Did you recall ever seeing Al Lee, who worked for Northwest? Did you ever see him on site?
Al Lee. No, I don't remember him.
Okay.
Being the night before Thanksgiving, most of the people had the day off because they didn't want to pay them double time or time and a half.
There's been a lot of, I'm sure you know, a lot of questions about the ransom money. Can you kind of describe, you said you placed it crossways. Can you kind of explain what you meant by that? Were they in bundles? Were they wrapped up anyway?
Yeah, they were in bundles, used $20 bills.
Were they secured with rubber bands?
Yes. At least that's the way I remember it.
Okay.
And they fit quite nicely in the bag.
Do you recall about what time the money arrived to the airport?
Oh, no, I couldn't give you the times.
Okay, all right. Great. Is there anything else, Mr. Petersen, you'd like to add?
Oh, I just wish that in your display down there you would mention Joe May, because he was the one manager that was really instrumental in the whole transaction. Taking the money up there.
Yeah, you don't by any chance happen to have an image of him, a photograph of him, or...
I can't hear you again.
Oh, you don't happen to have a photograph of him that we could add to that panel, do you?
Joe May?
Mm-hmm.
No, I know I haven't got one.
Okay.
Well, thank you, Mr. Petersen. We appreciate you taking time. Gwen had one other question.
Yeah,
Okay.
I just want to verify, because it is a difference in the display from what you've talked about. The $250,000, as opposed to the $200,000 that we've heard about so much, was that? Did you have to verify that count? Did someone just tell you the amount?
Well, as I remember, I was counting the bundles as I put them in.
Okay.
Well, thank you, Mr. Petersen. We again appreciate your time. And
Okay.
just for the record, this is December 5th, 2013, interview conducted by Fred Pointer and Gwen Whiting for the Washington State Historical